Hey there everybody, welcome to the channel here. Today we're going to be talking about how to draw cast shadows. Particularly we're going to start with omnidirectional light sources, and then in the second video we'll follow up with some point light sources. This is going to serve as kind of a test for our recording setup here and the lighting and the audio and all that kind of stuff. But we thought instead of doing just a simple kind of sound check thing, we'd try and record something quick and useful. And this is a topic that comes up fairly frequently. So my name's Chris, I'm an industrial designer, and we're going to be doing a whole bunch of content like this here, how to draw vehicles and objects and products and principles thereof. We're working on a much bigger kind of contained lesson that will go up hopefully in the near future. But in the meantime, we'll have little snippets for you. Anyways, let's get started here. So I've drawn all these kind of primitive shapes ahead of time just so we can save some time here. But like I said, we're going to be starting with some omnidirectional light sources, and what that basically means is this is the lighting condition or the shadow condition when your light source is very, very, very far away from your object, i.e. the sun. Effectively, it's so far away that the shadow edges are all going to be parallel to each other as opposed to fanning outwards as you go away from your object. So, in order to do this, we're going to start with a box, nice and simple. What you've got to do is pick the direction of your light source and the angle. So if it's the sun, we're talking about what direction the sun is in and basically what time of day it is. And then the process is pretty simple. I'm going to rotate the page a little bit as I draw just to make the ergonomics easy on me, but I'll try and contain it so it's not, nauseating. So let's say that the sun is going to be coming from this direction over here. And what we're going to do is kind of say, all right, well, it's going to come from that way, so we just pick an initial direction. I'm going to make it like that. Pretty much not quite straight out the side, but close. So now I want to do is establish that line parallel to each of the corners that's going to form our shadow here. So I'm going to take that, do it pretty close to parallel over here, and another one, this is the back corner here. So that's kind of just ghosted in there, sort of, but forms that back line there. So what I've done is done that same direction from the base of all of these edges. And now, like I said, we need to pick the angle, and we're going to do the same thing. Say it's coming kind of at a, maybe an afternoon, mid-afternoon type angle there. So kind of this, forming that little angle, and this should all be the same. That's actually 90. I'm going to take that line and do as close as I can to the same line. So this triangle and this triangle, one's smaller because it's in perspective and the distance there, and we'll cover how to do that in a future video about perspective specifically. But triangle's smaller, but they're, oh god, I can't remember the geometry name. It's congruent? Same angles is really the key. And then we'll do the same thing in the back, although you won't be able to see too much of it, but I'll cover that in just a second. There's a reason for it. And that looks about right. So if I've done this properly, this line, which is really sloppy, this line, and this line, I'm trying not to spin things too much for the camera, and it's really throwing me off. Those are all parallel-ish. Now, what that's done is it's given me 3 points. 1, 2, and 3. And those correspond to the 1, 2, 3 points that are going to form my shadow. Now, what I'm going to do, it'll spin. I'm just going to connect the dots. I'm going to go from there to there. And then this is all happening behind the box, but what happens is you go from that point to the base, and then from this point to the base. And there we go. I'll just darken it in so we have it. A little rough about it, that's fine. That is our cast shadow for the lighting condition that we chose there. Here's the base of your box, this blocks that, and there we are. And we can shade that in. I get too too violent with it. Apparently it shakes the table. Says, why we're testing things. Woohoo! Okay. So that's how you do a basic omnidirectional cast shadow for a box. Cylinders are a little bit trickier, but same general principles. So what you're going to need to do is find the minor and major axes, I should say, for the ellipses that make up the top and bottom of your cylinder. For this one, it's pretty simple because I just drew a dead-on perspective, so it's the minor axis is straight through the middle. It's this line, and where those connect to the outside of the ellipse is what I'm looking for. So it's 2 points there, same thing on the bottom, 1, 2. And then the major axis is just going pretty much straight horizontal from left to right, or right to left, I guess it doesn't matter. But those are my points, 1, 2, and 3, 4. And what we're going to do is effectively treat this exactly like we treated the box. But how we finish it off is going to be a little bit different. So let's say the sun's kind of over here this time. My sun noise, apparently. And we're going to draw kind of this way. I'm going to take that same parallel line coming out of each one of these points. Now you see how that clips sort of through this back of the ellipse here, even though that's not really visible from the perspective. That's okay. And I'm actually going to draw all 4 this time. And there's a reason for that. So 1, 2, 3, 4 equals 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. Now what I'm going to do is take those points again and pick an angle. And I'm going to pick a pretty steep one just so I'm not flying off the page and confusing everybody. So I'm going to pick a pretty steep angle, and this one is going to connect to this line. That gets me a point. And this one and this line need to connect. Same parallel line. That gets me a point. And one in the back. And one from the kind of non-useful side, but let's have it in there anyways. Now what that's done, and the reason I drew all 4 is that's given me 4 points here that are going to be on sort of a distorted ellipse. And this is where you get to be a little bit artistic. But effectively there should be a curve that connects all of these. Something like that. And I'm being a little sketchy about it. But then what you're going to do is take, it should be pretty close if you draw it perfectly. I didn't draw this perfectly, so that's okay. But what you're going to do is connect the outside edges and kind of just blend them into that top arc there. And then we have kind of this, yeah, that's about right. My ellipse drawing skills aren't perfect. I'm having to hold the paper out a little bit farther than I normally do in order to accommodate the tripod rig and everything. Excuses, I'll do better. But there is our shadow. And again, I'm shaking the table, I apologize. Ta-da. Now this will be an easy one. Cones and pyramids. Really function the same in either omnidirectional or point lights. I'll cover them as well in the next video, but it'll look really close. But all you've really got to worry about is the main central spine, effectively. Yeah, I wish there was more to say about it, but there really isn't. So I found the minor and major axis of this base ellipse for this cone. So this is that kind of invisible line in the back here, but I've drawn it through just to show it, so you can see what I'm doing. So this is the center point of that, and that forms the spine that goes up to the point of our cone. I'm going to pick a direction. Let's go that way. And then I'm going to pick an angle from the top there. Let's go right about there. And guess what? That's our shadow. That's the only line we need. And then we're just going to make tangent connections to that base ellipse. And this is the shadow that we wind up with. I really gotta slow down with the heavy shading there. And the pyramid works exactly the same way. Let's draw it out this way so we can see the whole thing happening. Okay, and then we'll make kind of a steeper angle. I think I curved that a little. There we go. So there's our point. And connect to that. And I'm going to connect to that. And I'm going to connect, I can't connect through there, so that's technically our shadow right there. But you know what, that was kind of boring. Let's say there are two light sources, how about that? So we're going to pick a direction for another one. It's going to go out here, and it's going to be up, you know, kind of, well, it's really a dead-on angle, but that's okay. So I'm going to pick that point. And now I get to connect to this one out here. And this one over here. And I can kind of shade that with a slightly different condition so we get this cool overlap effect. There you go, it's a pyramid on Tatooine. Okay, so I wanted to wrap up this video with a demonstration of the same principle on kind of a more complicated sort of compound shape. And I did another one initially for the same recording, and I didn't like it because I wound up putting the shadow at a weird angle that didn't show anything. So here's the do-over. But we're going to do the exact same things that we were doing before. I'm going to pick a light direction. Let's go kind of to the right here. And I'm just going to draw these parallel lines off of the bottom corners. I've been calling them the base points, although I realize that that's not a scientific term. It's just sort of my own little lingo. Now I can't see that back corner there, so I'm going to just sort of ghost in. Yeah, it's right around there. Cool. All right, so now we're going to pick an angle. So I'm going to start with the easy corner, because this is effectively just a box. Now I'm going to find the under corner to that. Oops, got a little off track there, but what I actually want to do is carry this line up to the top edge as well, because that will be important when we go through and connect our dots. That should go to there. So those two are connecting on the same line. And we're basically just going to repeat that pattern ad nauseum here. Ooh. Yeah, a little Latin. Spice things up. It's super exciting Latin. Shout out to the classic majors out there. Classics. All right, so that's going to be our back edge. Except it's not actually, because I need to carry that line back. And we'll get into how to construct shapes like this in much more detail in some future stuff. I'm just focused on the lighting at the moment. So that is actually our back line, because this is taken up by this mass here. Cool, all right. Just for my own sanity, let's put in the shadow points that we know about. Make this segment will be between these two, like that. And then here's our back. Just gonna go to there, so this gets eaten up, but we're still gonna carry that out. Anyways, now I could probably just draw these in perspective all the way over, but let's do it kind of the full and proper way. So I wanna make that parallel. Here, I'm going to carry that line up. Draw that parallel to there. So the lower one connects like so, and again, that's going to get eaten up by the bigger mess of the shadow, but that's okay. I'm really putting everything down here just to make sure we've got it. This needs a line coming out, because what's going to happen is we're going to have some overlap, and then we're going to have to use all of the data that we've got to figure out which parts actually show. And we're going to do that. Is that right? I torqued that a little bit, but that's okay. Let's connect them there. So this segment back here that you really can't see connects like that, and that's actually going to collide right there, which is going to make an interesting little condition that we'll get to in just a second. But let's finish off our main box. That little segment. This is bugging me because that should basically be a straight line. And it's because I was a little bit off with my parallel there. So I'm just gonna kind of fix that. Same situation there. No big deal. I know how it should look. And you can use that to sort of self-correct for some mistakes. It's the happy little trees principle. And then to the back there. So that's our shadow, sort of like this big area here. And you can see like this interior line is where it would be if it was like a reflection or something. Same kind of idea-ish. But that gets swallowed up by this bigger mass of this entire bottom surface here, casting a bigger shadow. Now, that surface, its shadow collides with its kind of own little table leg support there. So what we're actually going to do is just connect that ghosted back corner to where that is. And that's the shadow it casts on itself. I'm going to darken up a couple of key lines here. Again, I'm trying not to rotate the page too much and give everybody motion sickness, or at least be slow and deliberate about it. Normally I'm kind of whipping around, but a little harder to do for the camera. And then our shadow, we'll just kind of shade that in. Sometimes you can go in the same direction as the light for the shading lines, and that kind of helps hide some of the construction elements there. It's not really necessary. I've heard some people say I should always shade in the direction of your perspective lines because that keeps it in the da-da-da. And that's, you know, a cool style choice, but it's not really, there's no rule. I try to pick just an angle that doesn't result in me drawing a lot of really long, like the entire length. Like I wouldn't want to shade it this way because I'd have to be really deliberate about how to do that. I like to kind of cut them off shorter. It's really just aesthetics. Okay. So there is how you do a omnidirectional shadow for a compound object. And I forgot to do that one. Now, I'm not really focused in these particular little snippet videos, which are probably 20 minutes long at this point, on how to shade the object itself. Like this would be one color, this would be another color, this would be another color. And then this would be pretty close to that, but then get darker. In the section where that overlaps, that could be, it will be its own whole separate section there. So we're not going to worry about that for now. We're just focused on the cast shadows. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that. Please, you know the YouTube drill, like, share, subscribe, click on the little bell for notifications. It really does help out. and I'll see you next time.